In a world torn apart by war, civilization falls into ruin. One man awakens, his past left behind, to find a world of disarray and pain. His family gone, his friends left behind. Now with no memory, he begins his journey. Striking out across this broken land. To find the light in a lost world.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural video of Monster in a Box. I'm R-Tug with NPC Gaming Group, and today we're going to talk about something very near and dear to my heart. It's a game that came out in 1990 in the transitional period on the NES from now gone publisher SNK. It's called Crystalis. Crystalis was released in Japan April 13th, 1990. But it had a much cooler name than what we gave it over here. In Japan it was called God Slayer wa Ruka Tenku no Sonata, which basically translates to God Slayer, Sonata of the Faraway Sky. I don't know about you, but when I was younger I would have preferred God Slayer over Crystalis, just because it sounded way cooler than what we got. It was released in the States later on the year around July, and it didn't do so well. Like I said, this was the transitional period between NES and Super Nintendo, and I can recall seeing this on the shelf in plentiful numbers. Something else that might be worthy of note. Back in the year 2000, right around the time the SNK company was really dealing with bankruptcy, they made a re-release for the Game Boy, which up until recently in doing my research for this project, I had no idea existed. Notably, when doing comparisons for this game, one can't help but draw the conclusion that it is Zelda. Basically a Zelda ripoff. That's what most people come to the conclusion of. It's a top-down RPG where you go level by level. Notably absent, of course, is the scrolling screen, where Zelda, you'd reach the point, scroll over to the next screen, enemies would load. This had a different feel altogether to the Zelda universe. There was way less in the realm of problem solving and puzzles, and it went more toward the action. Get out there, get dirty, kill some stuff, get some money, have fun, you know. An RPG. Let's get into what made this game interesting, first and foremost. The story. I really am hesitant to talk about this next section because it's one of the most integral things to an RPG is its story. And at its very heart, Crystalis has a fantastic story. Granted, none of it's revealed to you immediately, but as you play along through the game, it's basically an immersion game. You go in through and you are actually this guy who just wakes up out of a cave. You don't know who you are, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going, only that you just one day were awakened outside of this cave. This is a mildly disjointed tale of wise men, hero wizard warriors, and a giant world-destroying castle in the sky. You are literally the chosen one. Awakened many, many years after the world was destroyed and axis shifted, and coming out of your hibernation you set forth onto the world to do good by it and destroy evil. From the get-go, you are dropped head first into the game and expected to get the best of it. You don't start out too badly. You're asked to put in your name. After all, this is you playing the character. It's not pre-named. It's not a closed narrative. It's you. You're the guy of prophecy. You're the one that's going to save the world. And then suddenly you just explode out of a wall. And you're greeted with one of the town's members who just happens to be standing out there waiting for you. It's like, holy shit, there's a dude coming out of what I thought was a mountain. This is actually part of what I loved about the game. There's no real explanation for who you are. Are you a robot? Maybe. Who knows? All you know is your name, and that you just exploded out of the side of a mountain. From the get-go, things are purposefully kept vague. And for those who haven't played it, do it. It's cheap enough. On eBay, I saw a nice copy of it going for $14 tops, with shipping included. So there really is no excuse not to pick this bugger up. As mentioned before, the story is kept very vague starting out into the game. As you progress, go through dungeons, you discover little bits and pieces about your past. I know this may not be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, when I was thrown into the mix, I was just dazed and disoriented as the main character. I mean, all I knew is that I put in my name, and suddenly I was in this world of magical swords and towns and money and alarm flutes. It was crazy, and I enjoyed every minute of it. One of the other major contributing factors to this game's greatness was the audio. More specifically, the music. It had some of the most addicting music that I can think of from the NES time. Why, Calming the Angry Sea is a good OC remix and a prime example of what is the best about this game. It just has fantastic, catchy music, and I can't help but just get it stuck in my head for days at a time. And now arguably one of the more important elements of this game, or of any game in general, is the control scheme. Now, controls for this game are just spot on. Your character is responsive. Each button press directly relates to a character's action on screen. Press this button, he's going to shoot something. Press another button, he's going to use his magic. You're going to teleport or use a plant. Granted, it has a little bit of a learning curve, because when you start out, the save menu is really hard to figure out. In Zelda, you had to die to save. In this game, you have to press select and then start to get to the save menu in order to save. And that's where you go to load after a continuation too. There's no direct load from the main screen. It's just done in-game. So when you get to the main menu, you have to select continue and then load in your file. For the most part, this game has been a pleasure to play. Occasionally you will have some collision detection issues. Like if you go into a mob, sometimes it will track and hit you where it shouldn't have. At no point in the game did I ever once wonder why my character did what he did, as he did what I wanted him to do. Kind of odd to put it that way, but after playing some more modern games, hint hint, Assassin's Creed, I can say with certainty that I do appreciate the tight control scheme of this game. Despite this game's overall reliance on grinding and occasional issue with being caught in the story and not having any place to go or exploration forcedly, I enjoyed the hell out of this game. It was a game that made me think, had me use my imagination. It was fun, the control schemes were tight, it had all sorts of involvement, plus you got to do really cool shit. Like, I can't really remember another game where I had to ride around on a dolphin while shooting lightning literally from my sword. This was a game that brought to light all the badass fantasies that you could have possibly had. You're not just a wizard, you're a warrior wizard. You have a sword, you have a shield, and you can summon lightning, and you can do telekinesis, and you could fly. You were the ultimate badass of this game. And it was really fun to play, almost obsessively so. Especially if you're coming from a Final Fantasy background where progress bars are your friends. You pretty much have that system set up. As mentioned before, this game is fairly cheap on eBay. As a picture showed earlier, I found a copy for $14 tops shipped. Now, there's no excuse to really not get this game, as it's really fun, and it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. If you don't have an NES, perhaps you have a Game Boy SP or something that could play old Game Boy games. As mentioned, in the year 2000, they made the remake for the Game Boy Color. Something I'll get into later, because I haven't really played it. But the Game Boy cart was still selling for fairly cheap if you wanted to give that a go. I'll probably get a hold of that and play through it next week and make a retro review of the Game Boy Color cart to see if what's changed, or give some perspective on what's different between this game and that. Otherwise, I would highly recommend Crystalis to any player of any age. This has been R-Tug with MPC Gaming Group. Thanks for watching.